Game one tonight, Oilers and Kings. Dregs, he joins us on the show this morning. Darren Dreger, it feels like we've been through this before, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And let's see if the outcome is going to be the same. What we know, though, is pretty obvious that the Los Angeles Kings are not the same team. They proved that over the course of the regular season. Let's see if they can prove it again here in round one. The Oilers know that the challenge is real. It's going to be tough to beat this LA Kings team again. But Edmonton also has the experience of getting to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. So I expect that the Oilers are going to be dialed in. I'm curious to see whether or not the mystery of Crypto Arena is going to transcend into the playoffs. Like, why was Los Angeles so dominant on home ice? Nobody has been able to explain it to me. I don't get it. It's certainly an impressive figure. And if it continues in the playoffs, well, obviously that's not good for the Oil. So we'll see. But I expect there's going to be some energy in that one. There is going to be some intensity and some aggressiveness to kick this series off.
Is it possible, or how do the Oilers go about doing it, making this series not about goaltending? Because I know everybody here in Edmonton is concerned with Stuart Skinner, and Kemper had a phenomenal year for the Kings. Can the Oilers do it? Can they make this series not just about goaltending?
I think they absolutely can, but that just means that everything else in front of the goaltender is going to have to be tight, right? The defensive structure of the Oilers, we're not just talking about the defensemen, the core. Everybody has to be in tune. So the details of that structure are going to have to be dialed in. And then obviously without Matthias Ekholm, you're going to have big performances from three key guys. And I look at Darnell Nurse, I look at Evan Bouchard, and I look at Wallman. I mean, those three guys are going to have to play out of their minds, and they're capable of doing that. So if everybody is pulling on the rope, as they say, then I think that'll take the pressure off of the goaltending of the Edmonton Oilers. And the goaltending is the same goaltending that helped them get to Game 7 against Florida last year. So they just can't be overwhelmed in the defensive zone. I mean, no team can, but in this case, that might make the Oilers' goaltending a little bit more porous than usual.
You mentioned it's a different team for the Kings and somewhat of a different team for the Oilers, too. 15 years, 1,078 regular season games for one Jeff Skinner. Yeah. And he's getting finally a sniff at the postseason. And he's got more of an ability here down the stretch with these injuries to kind of get a little more time. But the frustration and the head scratching for the fans all season was, why not? Do you see Chris Knoblauch maybe deploying him in a different fashion, or him getting some more minutes this postseason, or will it be much the same as we've seen?
Yeah, tell us he's a playoff wizard, Dregs. Hey,
Well, hey, I mean, we kind of chuckle as we enter into that part of the conversation, but why not, right? I mean, the postseason is made up of unsung heroes, and I would have some concerns, as I have and others have had, with Jeff Skinner's game defensively going into this series. But the offense is there, and he produced at a much higher level than I was expecting this year. He's an experienced guy. He's been around the National Hockey League a long, long time. Hasn't been in the postseason. So he's got something to prove to himself more than anything. Can he elevate his game all around to be a playoff performer? Well, we're going to find that out. And if he can, then for sure, Knoblauch's going to have to reconsider how he uses him as an option. But I think that Jeff, first and foremost, has to prove that he is trustworthy in the postseason. And if he passes that test and he generates some looks, chances, maybe some goals, then absolutely he could become a bigger figure than maybe what is expected going into this series.
Hockey insider Darren Dreger with us on the show this morning, brought to you by Pro-Am Sports. We have not seen a healthy Oilers lineup in quite some time. It's going to be as close as they're probably going to get to that coming up here. Evander Kane's not going to be good to go for game one. Ekholm obviously out as well. We'll see what happens this morning with Frederick. And we've been talking about, a little bit extra rest here for Draisaitl and McDavid, which I think is not a bad idea. But there's people questioning, can they flip a switch, finally get everybody together again and flip a switch? And I think it's a fair question, Dregs, but is it easier for this group to flip a switch because they're playing a team they know so well and know what it would take to maybe beat these Kings this time around again?
Yeah, well, I think they can flip a switch, and I think we're definitely going to see that. I wouldn't say that they coasted, into the playoff picture. I think that the Oilers as an organization managed the injuries and got as many players as they could the appropriate rest. And some guys just aren't quite ready, as you've already acknowledged. I still think that the takeaway from the Four Nations face-off, which applies to Connor McDavid, is real. And we saw how the pace of that hockey was off the scale. It really was. So those players go from regular season play in the National Hockey League to the Four Nations face-off, and that was like a Stanley Cup final series. It was not just the final game, Canada-US, but all the way through it. So I think that it is capable to flip that switch, and I do think that Draisaitl and Connor are going to do that. I think that they've proven that historically, provided they can stay healthy. And sure, there's familiarity with the Los Angeles Kings, so you know what you can expect. I mean, every coach says the same thing. It's not what the other team is going to do. It's how prepared you are from the start of the hockey game and how quickly you can get to your identity and how quickly you can execute your style of play. So again, that's on the leaders of the Edmonton Oilers. Let's see how many guys are there pulling behind them. But I do have a lot of time for the Los Angeles Kings. I do, because this team believes that they're playoff worthy. They didn't limp into the postseason. They believe that they're a team that can go deep into the Western Conference. And if they're going to do that, obviously they've got to get through Edmonton first.
How concerned should Oilers fans be? And nothing against Kempe and Kopitar, who are studs, but Byfield, I feel like if he really turns it on this series, that's a big load to handle.
Like, so good. And I think of teams and how they've slowly developed players, almost over-ripened players. I'm always drawn to Quinton Byfield in the Los Angeles Kings. And, you remember the time that he spent in the American League, and, he was drafted primarily as a centerman and, played a lot on the wing. And the belief was, when they drafted him, okay, here's the guy that we hope is going to take over for Anze Kopitar eventually. But they were so slow in making sure that he was ready. But he's also like a sponge. He's one of those personality guys who can handle the slow pace. And I'm not talking about the game, because for a big man, he gets around. He's got excellent hockey IQ. He's never, ever, ever afraid to go into the tough areas. And he's got offensive flair. He can put the puck in the net. But he's absorbed so much from the mentorship of Anze Kopitar, and it's starting to pay off now. So he is going to be one of their main factors. You're right. I mean, I'm always drawn to Adrian Kempe. I don't think that guy gets nearly enough credit across the National Hockey League, and he always seems to be a big game performer, especially in the playoffs. But I think that this could be the coming out party as far as playoff hockey goes for Byfield.
TSN's Darren Dreger joining us here on the Nielsen Show, Edmonton Sports Talk. Let's move over out east to the Boo Battle of Ontario. And, recapping that game, 6-2 Leafs, power plays clicking, Stolar's big in net, Marner 3 points.
Yeah.
I was talking to Dusty earlier. It's funny, after a game one, everybody always says, especially if you're on the losing end, well, it's going to be a long series. It's a long series. Is this just a case of just getting punched in bit of punch in the nose? Leafs punching the Ottawa Senators in the nose. Everybody seemed to be picking the Sens as the upstart type of thing, and the Leafs will trip again, but they really flexed a muscle yesterday.
Well, it was almost a perfect recipe for the Toronto Maple Leafs. The refs were twitchy. I'm not saying that there was a collection of bad calls. It's just that's not unusual. And I'd expect that from LA Edmonton tonight in Los Angeles. You keep in mind the on-ice officials are eager, and there's a nervous energy in their games as well. So it takes the first 10 minutes, maybe in certain cases the first period, for everybody to just settle down. Well, Toronto took advantage of poor discipline of the Ottawa Senators, particularly in that second period. And the big boys showed up. That breakaway goal by Mitch Marner, that's exactly what he needed, because this guy talk about a monkey on your back as far as being poor playoff performers. He's not alone in that department with the Maple Leafs, but he seems to be the whipping boy in the Toronto market. So he has a big night. Nylander, Tavares, Nyes, Matthews. When you allow those big guys to run like that, lug out. You're just not going to win. You're not going to win. So that has to be Ottawa's focus, is staying disciplined, getting back to the structure of the way they play the game. Not dissimilar to Toronto. Travis Green and Craig Berube as coaches kind of think the game the same way. Ottawa was never really able to establish their forecheck. I thought the closest thing to it, it was a bit of a miscue by Anthony Stolarz, was the Batherson goal, where they actually had a little bit of net front chaos there. Well, to beat a big man like Anthony Stolarz, that's what you have to do. You got to make it uncomfortable in front of him. So I expect more of that. And now that the nervous energy is gone, I mean, this isn't going to be a quick series unless the inexperience of Ottawa doesn't just go by the wayside. They take those penalties, man. The Toronto Maple Leafs power play is going to feast.
Dregs, one more place we want to go, and that's game 2 of the Winnipeg-St. Louis series. And it was funny watching that game. After the second period, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter being like, playoff heli, like, here go the Jets again. Yeah. How big was that third period, do you think, for Winnipeg just to start the playoffs and not lose game 1, 4-2? Yeah. And people go, Hellebuck led in 4 goals and 17 shots. Yeah, I just thought that was a massive period for that group.
It was for a couple of reasons. Number one, Winnipeg, it started about midway through the second period where they started to get back to their game. And again, they're a very structured team. You're going to hear a lot about that just across the board as teams advance in the playoffs. But that is the identity of the Winnipeg Jets. And they took control in that third period. And just as important to getting back to their game was the top line in the Winnipeg Jets, which is Scheifele, Kyle Connor, and Alex Iafallo. Mark Scheifele just threw the team on his back in that third period. Iafallo scores a big goal. Kyle Connor gets the game-winning goal. And then go back a little bit earlier in the save that Connor Hellebuck made on Jordan Kyrou, right? So I can appreciate, some of the naysayers and the critics. I didn't love the Robbie Thomas goal early in the hockey game on Hellebuck. It looked like it kind of surprised him. But this time of year, he would admit, even though he didn't post-game, that puck can't go in. But there was nervousness in that group. I'll tell you what, fellas, I'm in Winnipeg now. That building was bonkers on the weekend. It was. Like, the whiteout is always kind of cool, and it's a smaller venue. We know this, right? But when they introduced the starting lineup and they introduced Connor Hellebuck, the chant was MVP. MVP for a good solid minute. And even Hellebuck postgame said, I'm never going to forget that. So they got the nerves out of the way. Braden Shen was a one-man hitting crew out there, man. He hit everything in sight in that first period, but the Blues couldn't sustain it. They couldn't sustain it, and they couldn't keep up in the third period. So we'll see how things go tonight.
Dregs, head on down to the Elephant and Castle, get some of those chicken tendies. That's my main go-to in CFL season. I can't wait to get back out to the peg. God, those are good. All right, man, enjoy the rest of that series. We'll catch up to you on Monday.
Sounds good, guys. Have a good one. Enjoy the hockey.
That's Darren Dreger. I thought that room looked familiar. Like his background, I was like, this guy's in a hotel somewhere. I know. And then, that's Delta.
If they're busy,
Delta
maybe get Huss to
Winnipeg.
take him to the Sev.